You weren't too sensitive. You weren't the problem. You were just a child trying to survive someone who couldn't love you the way you needed. If you grew up feeling like you were never quite enough, like you were constantly walking on eggshells in your own home, like love felt like something you had to earn every single day, this video is going to feel uncomfortably familiar because today, we're talking about something millions of people carry into adulthood without ever having the words for it. What it looks like to be raised by a narcissistic parent. And I'm not using narcissist loosely here. I'm talking about a pattern of behavior, one that leaves a very specific kind of mark on a child. A mark that quietly shapes how you see yourself, how you love people, and why certain relationships feels exhausting in ways you can't quite explain. Stay with me. Because by the end of this, you might finally understand something you've been trying to figure out for years. Let's get one thing straight first. Narcissistic parents don't always look like monsters. Some of them coach Little League. Some of them bake birthday cakes. Some of them tell you they love you constantly, loudly, publicly. But here's the thing that makes this so confusing. Their love always comes with a catch. It's love that expires when you disappoint them. It's pride that evaporates the moment you outshine them. It's warmth that only shows up when they need something from you. Narcissistic parenting isn't always about cruelty. Sometimes it's about control disguised as love. And the children who grow up in these homes? They become experts at reading a room. Experts at shrinking themselves. Experts at pretending everything is fine, because that was literally a survival skill. So let's go through the signs. And as I say them, notice how your body reacts. Because sometimes your nervous system knows the truth before your mind is ready to admit it. Sign number 1, you grew up feeling like you were always performing. Not living, performing. In a home with a narcissistic parent, you didn't just exist, you were always on stage. Your achievements, your behavior, your appearance, all of it was a reflection of them. A report card wasn't about your growth. It was about how they looked to other people. You learned very early that the goal wasn't to be yourself. The goal was to be the version of you that kept the peace, made them look good, and didn't cause a scene. And here's what that does to a kid. You grow up not knowing who you actually are because you were so busy being who they needed you to be. Sign number 2, guilt was used as a weapon. Classic line, after everything I've done for you. Narcissistic parents are masters of guilt, but it's a very specific kind of guilt. It's not the natural, healthy guilt that helps us repair relationships. It's guilt designed to make you feel indebted. Love came with a running tab. Every sacrifice was eventually tallied up and presented at the worst possible moment. You learned that having needs was dangerous because your needs were always met with a reminder of what they cost. So you got quiet. You got small. And then you grew up wondering why you feel guilty asking anyone for anything. Sign number 3, your emotions were either dismissed or weaponized. When you were upset, one of two things happened. Either you were told you were overreacting, you're too sensitive, stop being so dramatic, you have nothing to cry about, or your emotions were somehow made about them. You'd come home crying about something at school, and within 5 minutes, the conversation had shifted to how they were struggling, how they had it harder, how they needed support. Either way, your feelings never really got to land anywhere safe. And here's the adult version of that. You either suppress everything and pride yourself on not being emotional, or you explode and then feel deep shame about it. Because you were never taught the middle ground. You were never taught that your feelings were valid and manageable at the same time. Sign number 4, love was conditional and you knew it. You could feel it even if you couldn't name it. The warmth in the room was directly tied to your behavior. Get good grades? Affection. Win the game? Praise. make a mistake? Silence, coldness. The withdrawal of love. This is called intermittent reinforcement, and it is one of the most psychologically powerful things you can do to another human being because it keeps you chasing. Always trying to get back to the warm version of them. Always working to deserve love again. The long-term effect? You become someone who works extremely hard in relationships, always trying to fix things, always trying to be enough. Because your nervous system was literally trained to chase love that kept moving. Sign number 6, criticism was constant, but praise was scarce or smothering. There was never a right answer. Either you were criticized relentlessly, nothing was ever good enough, every success was slightly undercut, or the praise was so over the top and conditional that it still felt controlling. You're the best, you're perfect, you're my everything. That kind of love is its own trap. Because when you're placed on a pedestal, you live in fear of falling off it. Children raised this way grow into adults with a complicated relationship with success. You either self-sabotage because achieving feels dangerous, or you're a relentless overachiever who still feels hollow at the top because you were never doing it for yourself. Sign number 7, your boundaries were seen as betrayal. Try to say no to a narcissistic parent. Go ahead. Picture it. What happens? For most people raised in these environments, saying no meant an explosion of anger, a guilt trip that lasted days, being frozen out, or being told you were selfish, ungrateful, or didn't love them. Your individuality, your right to be a separate person, was treated as a personal attack. So you learned not to have boundaries. And now, as an adult, the word no feels like a threat. Every time you try to set a limit with someone, that old guilt, that old fear, floods back in. That's not a personality flaw. That's a learned survival response. Sign number 8, you became an expert at reading people. Here's something a lot of people don't realize. Being raised by a narcissistic parent can actually make you remarkably perceptive because you had to be. Your safety, emotional or otherwise, depended on your ability to read micro-expressions, to sense a shift in mood, to know when to make yourself invisible and when to step in. You developed a kind of emotional radar that most people don't have. The downside? That radar never turns off. You're exhausted in social situations because you're constantly scanning. You attract people who need to be managed, because that dynamic feels familiar. You mistake intensity for connection because that's what you grew up with. Your superpower became your burden. What this does to you long term. Here's what I want you to understand. The signs we just talked about? They don't stay in childhood. They follow you. They show up in the relationships where you give everything and accept almost nothing in return. They show up in the way you apologize for taking up space. They show up in that relentless inner critic, the one that sounds suspiciously like someone you grew up with. They show up in how hard it is for you to receive love because somewhere deep down, you're still waiting for the condition. Still waiting for the catch. Complex trauma from narcissistic parenting doesn't always look like someone who's obviously broken. Often it looks like someone who is extremely functional, high-achieving, endlessly giving, great in a crisis but privately running on empty. And the hardest part? A lot of people in this situation spend decades defending their parent. Because acknowledging what happened means grieving a version of childhood you deserved but never got. And that grief is real. It is painful. And it is worth doing. So what do you do with all of this? First, you name it. And you've already started doing that just by watching this. Second, you separate what was done to you from who you are. The hypervigilance, the people-pleasing, the difficulty with boundaries, those aren't your personality. They're adaptations. Brilliant, creative adaptations that helped you survive. But you don't have to survive anymore. you get to live. Third, you find safe people and spaces where you can practice a different way of being. Therapy, especially trauma-informed or attachment-based approaches, can be genuinely transformative for people with this history. Not because you're broken, but because you deserve someone in your corner who is actually there for you. The work isn't about blaming your parent forever. It's not about making them the villain of your entire story. It's about you understanding yourself deeply enough to stop repeating patterns that were never yours to begin with. If any of this resonated with you, even one piece of it, I want you to sit with that. Don't rush past it. Let it mean something. You are not too sensitive. You are not too much. You were a child who needed more than you got. And the fact that you're here, trying to understand yourself, that's not weakness. That's courage. If this video helped you, share it with someone you think might need it. Subscribe if you want more content like this, we go deep here. And drop a comment below, which sign hit closest to home. Because you'd be surprised how many people are reading your comment thinking, that's exactly me. You're not alone in this. And you never were.